Hello, everyone, and welcome to another horrific review. I'm joined once again by Chris as we fear the Reaper with Final Destination 2. Released in 2003, this film has death stalking Kimberly Corman and multiple survivors of a deadly highway incident. The movie was made in a budget of $26 million and brought in $90.9 million at the box office. Well, here we are again.
What's up, buddy? I tell you, I had only seen this one in the theater, and the fact that I remembered the scene with the log.
That is the scene.
The fact that I remember it so vividly, was it 20 years later, 2003, 21 years later, like that's a successful film right away, because there's so many movies I saw in that era that I couldn't tell you one scene from it. My memory is not so great, but the fact that at least one scene and like the general theme of it, stood out, that's pretty successful. And rewatching it, I enjoyed it. There's definitely some fallacies of logic, some issues, as we'll get into, but overall, I tell you, this has been a nice change of pace compared to Sharknado. I'm really enjoying this.
I'm glad we're not doing all them at once. At least we can sort of step away from that and be here and go, some fun at least.
Exactly.
But I tell you one thing, you can see why Hollywood at the moment is just horror movie. That's all you're hearing at the moment. Horror movie, horror movie, horror movie, horror movie, horror movie. After the strikes, that's all they're knuckling down to make.
Yeah, it's the last successful genre where you could bank on it. I can't think of any other. I mean, for a while there, the superhero movies were pretty much easy money, but not anymore. I feel like horror is like the last one, and this is another successful one. We're just $26 million budget, and it made $90.9 million.
Yep. Near the 100 million.
That's great. What's the rule if you could make twice? You have to make twice.
Three times.
Is it 3 times?
Yeah, three times the budget, because that includes marketing and all that kind of stuff. So you go by that.
Gotcha. But I remember
that's for everybody to be happy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just enough. Anything above that, then super. I think it's like 2.5 to 3 times, depending on the marketing budget for it to break even.
Gotcha.
Because obviously the box office, the studio don't get all that. The box office take their cut and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But I tell you, like there used to be a rule of thumb. I remember hearing it from a few different places. I was I'm not sure exactly where to cite the reference, but basically for a sequel, you could usually bank on like 75% of the box office success. So when a studio is trying to decide whether or not to make a sequel, they looked at the profit margin from the first one and they're like, all right, if that came down 75%, then we're doing good. I don't think that rule holds up, because we've seen like a lot of sequels actually outperform the original. But I remember in the 90s, that was like the rule of thumb.
Oh yeah, look, I mean, the have this stuff kind of figured out. That's sensible to a point. But then you have the likes of Blumhouse spending $450 million to buy the Exorcist franchise, and that already had 4 movies, and they were just diminishing returns. First one is an absolute classic. Second one was bad. Third one was good. The fourth one was terrible, and then they re-released the fourth one again as a TV movie.
Oh, okay.
Just mental. Obviously, folks, you can check out the channel, my reviews of those. And then after all that's happened, the franchise was already dead. There's no way you're getting people back bums and seats.
Yeah.
And then Blumhouse bought the rights for $450 million, and they were never making that back in a million years.
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? Like it's very rare to get someone who's going to jump in for the first time on like the 5th movie or the 6th movie. Like if someone sees like a coming attraction, like come see, Exorcist 5, are they going to go like, well, I haven't seen the first 4, but I'll just jump in, I'll figure it out? Like, no,
generally not. No,
generally not. Yeah, so you're going to lose through, attrition. You're going to lose customers from each movie. So this one, we're starting to see it already. I mean, 90 million is still very good. But the first one made 112.9 million and had a smaller budget. So you're already starting to see a little bit of it. But then again, they've made a whole bunch. So
I think there's 5 of these in total.
Yeah, I think so. So it did well enough, in other words.
And this one hit the zeitgeist more because of that scene. That, you know, I mean, that has just been iconic in the horror circles. That's every meme going.
To this day, I won't drive behind a logging truck.
Still, people are like, oh.
I'm like, nope, 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 nope.
But you can understand because this opening scene, because obviously we started with Kimberly, she's going off to college, and oh my god, could you pick like 3 more stereotypical, like cookie cutter out of the box college students, American college students ever?
Yes. One is the slut, one is the druggie, one is the dumb kid, and then the protagonist is normal.
Yeah. And you're just like, really?
Yeah.
That's the this is where the tropes are painful. Like they're not rewatchable. You cannot invest in these characters, but you're not meant to anyway, I know, but
so that you bring up a good point. I was going to ask you because I'm still a newbie with horror, but I'm starting to see a trend, especially this era of movies, where I think they felt like the audience wouldn't be able to cope with having 3-dimensional characters that they cared about getting killed one by one. It's almost like they intentionally make them one-dimensional and disposable so that when they die, you're not like upset as an audience and you could move on to the next one.
You have hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this for a while. And I don't like it because I want to feel the emotion, if that makes sense. I want to invest in the character and because something happens. But these are not meant to, you're not meant to think about these. You know, and that's the sort of slasher genre. That's why horror has a bad name. It's because of the slasher genre. And it's not even the independent stuff. It's the Hollywood mainstream, you know what I mean, for the masses that don't want audiences getting upset. That's, you know,
yeah.
If they have audiences freaking out and leaving cinemas, because we're fine, we're nerds, we get it. We can sort of look. But if you think about your average normie going to the cinema, they don't want to be challenged in any shape or form.
Yeah.
Like they really don't want to think. They just want to go in and go, shiny lights, and then go out again, you know what I mean? Go out again to dinner or whatever they're doing afterwards. Take the kids home. You know, that's generally your movie going audience.
Yeah. That's true.
And we're going to see a lot of that over the next 2 years.
What do you think if they maybe there are movies that you could think of that did it more successfully, but do you think if you had, like, let's say 10 to 15 deaths and all of the characters were 3-dimensional, they had no glaring flaws, you know, like a lot of times they make the character have a major character flaw so that you don't
I'll
mind.
tell you a classic intro to a movie. Death Ship.
I haven't seen it. Okay.
Right, and there's a killing scene in that. And it's they're at a ball on the deck of the ship. And anyone that knows the movie knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And honestly, you just, it's the shock value of going, what the hell? God, what was that Japanese one? There's Japanese do some mental, like, slashers and stuff. God, there's just one with a wee schoolgirl on a bus. And, like, all her schoolmates get killed. God,
Okay.
did I review it or did I just watch it? See, don't forget, I don't always review every movie I watch. Sometimes I'll just watch a movie, you know, because sometimes I just want to watch one and switch off.
Yeah.
Because then I'd be have to do like 2 or 3 videos a day to catch up. You know, I mean, with no downtime whatsoever.
Which you did that time.
Which I tried that, and look what happened to me. That took my head away. But I think that was part of why I did that as well. That was sort of in the back of my mind of how far can I push it?
Yeah.
And how dedicated would you have to be to, like, try and catch every movie? And you've no mission. They're more than enough. And that's the thing about Hollywood right now. They're going to lean in horror, which they always have done. If you've heard Cameron and I talking, they've always leaned in horror. As Cameron says, horror is the red-headed stepchild that's kept the cinema doors open, but they don't want to admit it.
Yeah, and because I think it's a much different experience more than any other genre. The difference between seeing it not live, but seeing it with other people and watching it at home by yourself, you know, on a stream, it's the biggest gap, I think. I mean, there's certain genres, sci-fi, you probably want the bigger screens, but nowadays the TVs at home are so sophisticated, 4K TVs and what have you, 8K TVs, they keep getting better and better. So even sci-fi doesn't, there's not that big of a gap anymore. But horror, when you're with other people and you have that shock value, I feel like there's just a much different experience.
Like the last one, like where the cinema was full, was The Nun 2. I went to see, and honestly, there's like a couple of wee girls. I think I was telling them during the review, they were all giggling and stuff, and and shining their phones. I'm like, am I gonna have to pull their two heads off? And then the chair kind of rocked me to sleep because it was the 4DX type. The chair moves back and forward. But once it got into the horror, silence. I mean, you could hear a pin drop.
Which is great.
When people are that intense into it, that's that's it. You're there. I remember going on a date once, and it was her suggestion, in my defense, to go and see The Hostel when it first came out. And I don't think anybody was expecting that.
Yeah, that's a funny one for a first date.
Her choice. She chose the film. It wasn't me.
Yeah. Huh.
And that was the start of the torture porn. Because did The Hostel come out before Saw? I think it did.
I'm not sure.
I think the whole. I'm not a fan of torture porn. I don't see the point of it. It's a bit overdone. Once you get the shock rock type stuff, it's done and dusted.
Yeah, I don't like those either. Yeah, but there's like a communal experience, a shared experience in the theater for this type of genre that I think you just can't replicate anywhere else. So,
that's what I want to cover with Steve. Actually, we were talking about it. The Tingler, 1959, Vincent Price.
Okay.
And the stuff they pulled for that, they actually had electrodes in the cinema seats.
Oh, really?
So it could shock people. I couldn't do it now. There'd be friggin', there'd be lawsuits left, right, and center. But that had people like proper upset. The only other time they did that was the Blair Witch Project, that really had people invested.
Oh yeah.
And it's lightning in a bottle. You can't manufacture it.
Yeah.
You either hit the zone or you don't. And especially horror fans, and that it's just different breed of folks. So you can't shock horror fans, because once you've watched 500 movies, it's going to take a lot. You know what I mean? So you have to go somewhere else. But this sort of movie, the Final Destination ones, they're for the general audience. That's maybe you're not a super horror fan, but you want a bit of action and maybe like almost blockbuster summer type movie.
Yeah, and I think it's successful. It works well. I was just curious if they had made the characters like three-dimensional and you actually cared about them. They didn't have any glaring flaws in their character like almost all of these had. What type of experience would it be? Would it be too emotional? Would you be too upset too many different times? Or would you... It would be a much different experience, but would it be better?
Well, let's go back to Nightmare on Elm Street. Glenn's death. And there's even the Hood. God, I forget his name. The Hood rat in that.
Okay.
Like Tina's boyfriend. You even felt sorry for him when he got killed in the jail cell. Because when all the bluster was done, you realize he was absolutely freaking terrified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And obviously you're rooting for Nancy and all, but it was touch and go whether she was going to make it.
Right.
Look at that. And actually, that's one thing like the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise has done well, was give you three-dimensional characters.
Gotcha.
That was the whole point. You had basically a sleep demon.
Yeah.
And that was the whole idea of the fear.
I'm trying to remember them in my head. I guess they didn't have any major character flaws for the most part. Yeah.
Tina wasn't a bad girl. I mean, was it Rod? Rod or Todd, I think her boyfriend was. But she was all right. Nancy was a typical girl. Her mother was an alcoholic. Her father, cop, was never about. And she was actually well adjusted.
Right.
Said Rod, he was the scumbag, the hood rat, but at the end of the day, he was absolutely petrified of Freddy Krueger. Glenn was the boy next door, nice parents, good lad, completely in love with Nancy, and actually respectful of her. He's That was what's his face? Johnny Depp's first appearance.
Oh, okay.
First starring role. He played Glenn. You know the scene I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah, I didn't know that was his first appearance, but
Yeah,
he was very young. It makes sense. Yeah.
You know, and everyone's like heart in their mouth in bed, and you're just like, oh,
yeah,
because you were rooting for him. He wasn't a bad guy.
Yeah, that's true.
And even Todd, you were feeling bad for him, like, oh dear.
Yeah, it's been a
So
while since I've seen them, but yeah, I know you're talking
we
about.
will have to. Don't trust me. I have a whole thing of this. There's a whole backlog of stuff we can go through, and it'll take us years.
Yeah. We got to run it past Cam. Cam is still mad at me for doing Killer Clowns without him.
Oh, he was annoyed about that. Oh dear.
Yeah, he brings it up every once in a while.
It's like, you bastards.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, mate. It's your, you're the one I have to try and work around.
Yeah.
He's a busy man. What can I say?
For sure.
Yeah. But yeah, back to this movie, like I said, they just had, like, they're really beating you over the head with how unlikable these kids are.
Yes. But I tell you, the film was successful in a few areas. One of them was the shock factor, because I didn't expect the kids to die in the second car. I mean, we saw the premonition, so she knows. So she stops the car and she gets out of the car. She's talking to the cop. I didn't think there was any way that the kids were going to die then. I thought it was going to be like the first movie where
all the kids in the car and a few others
were saved, and then one by one they were going to die. So I was like totally blown away, because they were setting up her friend to be like, her best friend. It was going to be like a major character in the movie. I've recognized the actress before from other things. I remember her being in the trailers and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, everyone in the car is going to be saved by her premonition, and then slowly they're going to die off. So the fact that that other truck came in way after, it's really doesn't make sense why it was coming in that fast. But the fact that it took them all out, I was shocked.
I thought Michael Bay was involved in this at some point, because I almost heard transformer noises.
It did sound like that.
I'm like, I just made that. I'm like, oh fuck no.
Especially because they weren't on the main road yet. They had stopped at the on ramp, and that was the whole thing, that the cop was talking to her then, and she backed up all the other traffic, so they couldn't have even gotten past her to get onto the main highway. So the fact that truck still hit that car, that was pretty brutal, and it was shocking. So I mean, the movie was successful and right away as far as the shock value.
Let's just say a lot of American drivers would not survive in the UK. Like, I've seen people, you have the 4 lanes, like a standard.
Yeah.
Like two outside, right? Completely clear road, and a car like 2 miles away, somebody's up ahead, like slowing down for the lights, 2 mile gap, and they're going, me, and you're just looking going, the fuck? And then you realize they're actually getting it. Now, the other lane's clear, they're nowhere near that, but they're just coming up, getting annoyed because, that is too far for me to cope with on a perfectly straight road. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It's insane. But yeah, they're not wearing seatbelts and just really being a bunch of dum-dums.
Yeah, so I looked it up in New York, because this one takes place in New York, just like the first movie did. And when she goes to visit later on, she goes to visit Clear in the Institute. They show like a map in the background, and it's all the places. They're actually very close to where I live, which I enjoyed. But yeah, New York, it's been illegal to drive without a seatbelt since 1984. So that that rule has been around a long time. So,
like, that's not even a thing. I still get why it's not worth it. Like, here, you like that stuff you lose your license over.
Yeah, it's a big offense, and nowadays the cars are very annoying. Like, as soon as you turn the engine on,
bang,
and it's getting like louder,
bang.
and you can't listen to the radio. You can't, like, you literally just have to just put it on. Like, they don't even give you a choice anymore, the cars.
No, which is, fair one, because
after seeing this movie, you're like, okay, I get it.
good, but yeah, it's setting you up. I tell you what, this had a better intro than the first one.
I thought so too.
like the intro to the first one was painful and it was just over the top. Where this was sort of subtle undertones. We're getting the news report that's a year later, and you're just getting like normality, normal music. Remember, I said that the first one it needed that, just normal music. So you get the
Yes.
shock value where the first one started off dun dun dun, before you even begin.
Yeah. I thought it did a couple of good things in the beginning. I liked that they had that news report with that person who was talking about, death. And I thought that was important as a recap and talking about what happened to the kids from Flight 180 and everything like that. I thought that was good. But then they also took it back down when they had a normal conversation, Kimberly and her dad and the friend in the car. And then, the dad calls her, the transmission fluid's leaking. Like It was rather normal up until that shock factor. So I liked it. I thought the setup was really good.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of horror. You can't be sitting up here all the time because then you've nowhere else to go emotionally. So it has to bring you down. That's where the comedic moments, the sexual tension. That's why sex in horror works so well, because it's stimulating two parts of the brain.
Yeah.
When you're getting because then when the impact comes, it's that part of the brain's engaged, so it just tends to open the door a bit more to let you in.
Yeah.
And yeah, this did it well. Everything is normal. Then it goes on the highway and it goes into the, it's just laying it out. And this is like horror slapstick. You see the plank, it's over the shoulder. They're swinging the plank around, everyone's ducking. And it's just every moron got on the road at the same time.
Well, that's New York for you. So that felt very realistic to me. I was like yeah, this is what happens.
The guy's using his knees to steer while he's on the Colombian marching powder, and just in broad daylight. While you're just like, really, no one can park up and do what they need to do. Your stoner kid, the stoner guy doesn't just have a bag of weed. He's like a friggin', a whole Eastern Seaboard friggin' distribution network of weed.
Yeah. How about the guy doing cocaine?
That's what I said. The Colombian marching powder.
Yeah.
Using his knees to steer the wheel, like in broad daylight, and you're just like, really, junkies? Can you not like wait till you're off the road? Can you really not last that long without effects?
This all felt very real to me. This is like, it's very, very realistic. And I thought the CGI in it was very good, especially for 21 years old, this movie. Like all the collisions, like everything about that whole scene felt very realistic to me. What did you think?
Just one or two slight wobbles, but even then, because of everything else happened, you just forget it, And that's what I said. You always, like a bit with the truck was a bit, but everything else was done so well that you forgive the truck.
That second truck, right?
Second truck, yes.
That was a little ridiculous. Yeah, that's true.
But because of everything happened before, you're okay with it because they've set you up and they've given you the shock factor, and you're on for the ride. This is like a roller coaster ride, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it, you're all in everything's shaking and stuff, and you're just waiting, and you're going clink, 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 and you're just waiting to go over the edge.
Yeah.
And when they do that, when they invest and they set you up, you're along for the ride, so you're forgiven of a lot of things. But how does this look so much better on 26 million than $100 million movies today? $300 million, like they're creeping up to the 400 million mark now, and they look shit.
Yeah, I wish I had seen the the making of, which I wasn't able to find, but it must have been a lot of stunt work. It couldn't have been that much CGI.
Absolutely. There's practical effects. This is old school. This is what are we, like Terminator 3, if you compare them to the action movies.
Yeah.
Sort of era. You're in the still practical effects, closed off motorway sets, things blowing up, squibs, you name it.
Yeah.
And just a little smattering of CGI just to enhance stuff.
Right.
Not going overboard. It wasn't what was that one with Arnie Schwarzenegger? With the alligator. Do you remember that? Do you remember the alligator and it looked like a cartoon? And it was horrendous. It wasn't a razor. Was it a razor or True Lies? What was the one he shot the alligator? It looked absolutely terrible.
It might be True Lies, but I'm not.
You do know the one I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah.
And you look at that thing and you're like, oh my god, that's awful. Like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit looked better, more believable.
And that had to be around this time frame too, right?
Well, there was a whole groundbreaking. There's a whole groundbreaking era of filmmaking.
Yeah.
The first Lord of the Rings would have been out by now. 2003.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first Lord of the Rings.
Eraser. That's the name of it.
Eraser. Oh god, yes.
Eraser, 1996. So a little before this, but still, it looked terrible. Yeah. This looked really good.
Midnight Meat Train had been out by the end, so you know what I mean. We've seen the reaction to bad CGI, so they're like, nah, we're not doing this. We want to make money.
Yeah.
So they're still using the practical effects, but look at the budget that they're still able and prepared to do that.
Yeah. And just all the collisions took place, like I said, except for that one truck who maybe the guy fell asleep or he was on his cell phone or something, which would have been a little early for a cell phone to be looking at your phone. But aside from that second truck coming in, everything looked very realistic. Even the part where they got flipped over and then they're just stuck because they're pinned, and then the truck that's on fire is coming at them. Like, it's terrifying because that's it's nothing you can do in that instance. So I thought it was just a really successful scene. Did you notice though the one part? I think it was after her premonition, or maybe it was part of the premonition, where it flashed on one of the street signs, next 180 feet.
I missed that. I might have seen it, but I didn't
very
on board.
quickly. It was right when she was talking to the police officer. So I think she had pulled over. She was panicking. The police officer comes over to try to talk to her. And there's like a construction sign that says next 180 feet. You know, maybe like for the next 180 feet, you have to go slow or something like that. But it got me thinking, if you saw that sign, because 180 is very, very important to the story. And I think I know why.
That sounds like you're formulating something.
You're damn right it is. I'm sorry.
Is it theory time?
I want to try something different.
It is a theory. God damn it, it's time for a theory. Let's do it. It's a theory. It's a Chris. It's a theory. Chrissy Chris. Chrissy Chris.
Chris's crazy theory.
Not even half an hour in the stream, going for the shock factor, getting into it. Let's do it.
So I took a screen capture of it because it was very quick, but it was shocking because they like zoomed in on it. So if let's see if I could show you this.
All right, do you want me to? Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, actually,
so
let's do that. That's better.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. So yeah, so this is exactly what the sign looked like when the police officer was talking to her. And it jumped out at me like 180. Like, where have we seen that number before in Final Destination? Because for them to flash on it, even though it was just for a second, I thought it had to have significance. So then I started to think, in Final Destination, where have we seen 180 before? Final Destination 1, the name of the number of the flight was Flight 180 that crashed. In fact, I captured the ticket so I could prove to you. Why would you argue with me? You know it's 180. But if you did argue with me, I have it right there where it says Flight 180 to France. So what is that significant about this number? Why would the director, or, you know, in this case, why would Death and, you know, choose this number to have any kind of relevance? And I started to think, were there other examples? And then I thought, well, maybe the
backwards.
Exactly. So at first
I'm only just twigging on now.
I like this. I have a fan. I have one person that I can convince. So, you know, 81 is not 180, but if you look at it backwards, Le Cafe Miro at the end of Final Destination 1 is 180 backwards, as my buddy Colin.
When the sign flips over, it will become 180.
Yes, when he gets smashed.
Smashed with oh my God. Oh dear.
Alex's friend. So I was like, okay, now they've shown it twice in Final Destination once, and they've shown it once at least in Final Destination 2. Were there any other examples? And I went and I rewatched Final Destination 2. I did see one other sort of example at the beginning of the movie when on TV they're talking about the guy's talking about death and why he thinks death is always stalking us. Look at the clock at the top, 1:08 a.m. when Kimberly wakes up. Not 180, but it's definitely.
But it's got the digits.
It's definitely got. Yeah, that's the only way you could do it, I guess, with the clock. So that's as close as you can get. So clearly, they're trying to send a message. And what is important about the number 180? Well, a circle is 360 degrees. So 180 is half of a circle. And a circle represents many things, but in this case, I think it's referring to the circle of life. As our buddy Elton John taught us, the circle of life is very important. It's a hit song, but also it's very important. So I think also another fact about 180 is if you hear the term, someone's going to do a 180, it means they're going to completely turn something around. And in this movie, that was also a theme. Everyone started to die in the reverse order of a premonition. So I think what's happening is that death is trying to circle back and close the loop that started in the first one. And I think 180 is a symbol of this because it's coming back and trying to end what started in the first one and close the loop. And that is why death's design is to do a 180 and close the circle of life. Crazy? I don't think so.
There you go, folks. It's a theory. It's a Chris. It's a theory. Chrissy Chris. Chrissy Chris. Chris's crazy theory. It all circles back. God, you're putting more thought in this than a lot of like actual movies today. That's the frightening thing, and I don't know whether I should be worried that I'm like getting on board with these now before they happen.
I have one convert. We would have the world's smallest cult.
Small yet mighty. I think right. Levi's a convert as well.
That's right.
He absolutely loves it. Oh dear. Absolutely hilarious. But that's the thing though. Do you remember Easter eggs and all that kind of stuff when they were subtly woven in and you had to go digging for them, and then that was part of the fun to expand the fandom?
Yes.
But today, you mentioned the Marvel movies. Do you remember back in the day the Stan Lee cameos?
Yes. Blink
and you missed them. And then eventually just got the point. There he is. Look at him right there. And you're just like, oh my God, what the hell? Because
at one point he was like in space and he's talking to the Watchers and he's on a moon or something like that. So you're right.
With the dog. With
Astro or something.
But that's where it got stupid, because the whole point of a nudge and a wink and the whole thing is you can still enjoy the movie without it. If you don't get it, you still are able to enjoy the movie. But to build the fandom, those little nuggets are for people to go mining for. And it becomes if you know, you know, or if you notice it, that's part of the excitement of something like this. But they've completely missed the point now because everything is just so corporatized.
Yeah, for sure.
Nobody that creates movies now has a personality.
Yeah. They didn't like harp on it. Like nowadays, if they made the movie, they would have like explained it, or they would have showed flashbacks in case you missed it. They would have really hit you over the head. This was just like a subtle thing that I may be wrong about the meaning behind it, but it was fun once I noticed that sign to go back and when I found the Cafe Mirror one, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to be looking for this the rest of the Final Destination movies, and it's definitely going to ruin my fun, as all my overthinking does. My own brain is my own is my biggest problem.
I hear you. No, they do mention about death trying to close the loop and
Yeah.
re-strike the balance, and it's like an elastic band being pulled too hard and then snapping back.
Yeah.
But yeah, that highway scene was absolute carnage, and yeah, that logging truck. Oh my god, that is the ultimate, and just I don't think they knew what they were doing. Like 100 movies have had scenes, I guess, and all sorts, but just the visceral quality of that log.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect, not to use a pun, the perfect vehicle, the perfect movie idea vehicle. I mean, to deliver on that, because the logs are long enough that if you are driving on the side of one and one falls down, like you can't speed up in time to go past the car, you can't slow down in time. It's too long, so that it's the perfect killing.
Well, if you're on the motorway and there's something, you'll get a sign, debris on road, and they'll mark the lane, and this will be like 10 miles away, because they know that if you're hurtling along 70 miles an hour, sometimes a bit more, depends if you're running the schedule or not. But you have no chance of missing something like that at that speed.
Right.
So yeah, and also the way they had the logs bounce, like I think it was a bounce as well, the logs. Like there was a solid thunk as they hit the tarmac.
Yeah.
Like I remember this in cinema. It was just like you heard the thunk, you felt it.
Yeah, they did a great job with the sound. Even the sound of the tires of the truck trying to like screech to a halt after going 65 miles an hour. Just that visceral sound of the tires burning up and screeching. It was just very successful. Whoever planned that out. I know it's partly the director, but the stunt coordinator, everyone involved.
You need a team. You can't do it yourself. It's having the right team and the people that you can just say, I want it to look like this, and you've got a team that goes, absolutely, let's do it.
Yeah.
Where I think that is completely missing now. Like you can still get I still get the sense that people are trying to make a movie for me to enjoy with this.
Right.
And that's appreciated. When you know that they're trying to entertain you, you're along for the ride.
Yeah.
And with this being a sequel, like usually your expectations are low, but I would argue they managed to ramp it up for us.
I think I like this one better than the first one. It's close, but I just feel like
the first is always going to introduce the idea and the concept, and it's unique.
Yeah.
But like I said, we've talked about the first one, and there were issues. This is an action horror. I think that's the best way to describe this. It's action horror.
Yeah.
Because in other cases, this could be an action movie. And this is where the two kind of blend in, because in an action movie, you wouldn't get as much, it wouldn't be as visceral. That's the bit that separates, like, what do you call that one? Bad Boys 2. The highway chase scene.
Right, okay.
You could almost watch this play out beat for beat.
Yeah.
To a point. However, the bit that makes it horror is the fact that people are getting absolutely mangled.
Yeah.
And it's not holding back, and there's no reverence for anybody, even the pregnant lady and everything else. Nobody's safe. Where in your standard action movies, there are people that are protected. Your normie audience don't want to see that. They wouldn't be able to stomach it.
Yeah.
And this is where horror goes over that, line, and the movie becomes something else.
Yeah. It's hard to separate the two movies so far because they were intentionally very connected. I mean, there was a ton of story beats and time devoted to kind of recapping what happened in the first movie. So it feels like one long movie, but I do give this one a slight edge over the first one, even though normally I just lean to the first one because it's the original idea and the second is always going to be a copy. But the reason I give this one a slight edge, I think, is because of the shock factor there were two moments that I absolutely did not see coming in this one, whereas I felt the first one was sort of predictable. Like you kind of knew who was
it
going
was
to
all
survive.
the setup. It was a slapstick.
You knew who was going to survive and who wasn't going to survive in the first one. In this one, there were two moments that shocked me. Like I already mentioned one with the kids dying so quickly in the car after her premonition. And then the other one, not to get ahead of ourselves, but there's one other death coming up when we talk about it that was like completely shocked me. And I think for that reason, I give this one a little bit of an edge over the first one.
I definitely enjoyed myself better watching this movie. I definitely did. You know, I felt it, you know, watching it, that I was enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was expanding the lore. Which, once again, where do you see that today?
Yeah.
And this is 2003. It's not even that long ago.
Yeah, this is how you do a sequel, right?
Yeah. But this is how you do a movie. Even if this wasn't a sequel, say this was Final Destination, the only movie, this is how you do a movie.
Yeah.
And the bad bits are overshadowed. You know, like I said, the kids are annoying in this, but they make up for it because their death is that shocking in it.
Yeah.
Like, that was really impactful. And the fact that this is meme territory, this has been a meme farm for 21 years, and there's still people making memes of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fact that it's still it's like it's a meme mine, you know what I mean? People are still mining it for memes.
Yeah. I see it all the time. Yeah.
But they had obviously all the fallback, the survivors, and I was wondering how the hell they were going to have, because there was about 30 cars in that
Pile up.
Yeah, no, the ones that didn't get involved.
Oh, that were on the on-ramp.
And I thought, oh my god, is this going to be like 30? Because it's been years since I've seen this.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my god, how are they going to work all these people in the script? And then it quickly explains that it's only like the first 5 cars. They're the ones meant to die. Everyone else, you know, wasn't. They were going to break or something at the time and not be involved in it.
Right. Yeah. But again, I thought it was going to be the people in her car, and it turns out they switched it, and it was just the people on the on-ramp.
Completely subverted expectations, which
worked.
Yeah.
And they did that throughout the movie. There was a bunch of times where you're like, oh, okay, the guy's definitely going to die. Like Evan, where he's going to die in the fire, and then he gets out of the fire, and then he's going to die here. You know, and like he was
going to die of sepsis or something anyway. He lives like shit. I mean, oh god.
One thing I couldn't figure out is they made a big deal that he's the luckiest guy because he just won the lottery.
125 grand? What the hell is that going to...
I was going to say, I think it was 250, but even still, it's like, it's New York. That gives you like 3 months, you know?
It's like, you know, living London, freaking what that going to do?
Yeah.
That's not even a deposit for a house here.
And it's a movie. You could literally pick any amount of money for him to win. I don't know why they intentionally chose, you know?
Well, it had to be enough that he still had to cook, and he wasn't like, he could have afforded a takeout.
Yeah.
It was laid on a bit thick, like it was, but at the same time, the good bits, like, it's this dialogue. This is the introduction to this type of dialogue, which has really reached the zenith today, that it's just unbearable to listen to characters.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me.
That's
trying to go again. Oh shit. Apologies. Every bloody time I go on stream, this happens to me. I start building up. Also, I've had the window open, so I've been like probably all the pollen and stuff, because there's like a forest outside. But yeah, the bad bits, this dialogue is like the infant stages of, like, we saw it with Scream, we see it with a lot of movies. The whole Jen, Silent Bob, you know, all that Kevin Smith's type movies.
Yeah.
These kids just speaking the way they do, and I find it unbearable. I don't know what it is about that type of dialogue, but I just don't enjoy it.
What's like some of the examples of the ones
Hey
that...
man, and all that stuff, and like the stoner and the way they're talking in the car.
Oh yeah. I think it started in that police station scene. That was the first example. Well, you had a little bit with the kids in the car.
Yeah.
But I think the police station scene.
This sort of dialogue and this sort of, because this is where the movie works against itself, I think, is to start over explaining. They had a tenuous link, which was cool.
Yeah.
Same area a year later. Fair enough. But then it was almost like they weren't confident that the audience would get it.
Yeah. And again, it's like they assumed that people would be watching this one before they watched the first one.
Which is a bit, because here's the thing with the sequel as well. You want people to go back. Think about the resale market, which once again they've completely missed the ball on.
Yeah.
A sequel of a movie's coming out, then you find ways to get, you have it on discounted aisles in the DVD shop or the Blu-ray store, or today it reappears back out in streaming again to get the audience back in. Or if somebody watches a sequel and there's bits they don't understand, it encourages them to go back and visit the property, the resale value,
Yeah.
And it's like they forgot those basics.
Yeah, and I think it's the job of the editor too. I think the editor failed in this case because a lot of times in movies they give exposition because they have to tell the audience what's going on.
Mm.
But then if there are certain characters that were not in that exposition scene, you have to find a way of those characters learning the information without just repeating the information. And I felt like this was just repeating the information. Like they did a good job with that opening scene with the guy on TV explaining his theory about death, stalking everything, and kind of recapping the events from the first one. Great. Once they have that exposition done, the audience is now on board. So now for them to recap it in the scene at the police station is just wasting time. Like, have you ever noticed in a movie where like two characters are say like, okay, we'll meet up at the diner later tonight, and then they leave, and you notice they never say where they're meeting, which diner, or what time, because that information is superfluous. Like the audience doesn't need to know that, and that's
they know the diner they're going to. It's part of it.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help the audience to give those details. So same thing with this. I feel like the editor could have like found a way, or just cut that scene, or just the director had to find a way for the characters to get the same information that we already know without just telling the same story, and they didn't do that.
No, and the thing is, it's the same area. It's a year later, so at the end of Final Destination 1, it's been 6 months after the event. This is 6 months after that event, which is meant, it's still in. It was a shocking thing. People were personally affected. It's still in the memory. We've got the introduction. That's it. Everyone just sort of knows. And just somebody piping up, oh God, not again. That's all you needed. But this is this pattern. And this is why I bring it up. And it's almost meta. It's like metagaming in a TTRPG where people don't play as their characters and stop the metagame out. Let's stop everything. Let's break the fourth wall. Let's start explaining stuff. And it ruins the experience. Screamed at it, and that's why I don't like the franchise. It's this language and dialogue, but it's got to this point where today it's painful to watch a movie, and it starts from this assumption that the audience is stupid.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to.
It's a position of arrogance. I'm big brain and you small brain peasant that's watching this movie, and unfortunately, that culture, because it was never challenged. It's getting, because of social media, it's getting challenged now and they don't like it.
Yeah.
Where before there wasn't the means. Like, you saw the phone, their flip phones or Nokias and stuff, and Motorola's people used in 2003.
Yeah.
So you weren't, the fact that she even had a charger in the car at a holder, that was like rich people stuff.
Right. Well, you make a great point. They made it very clear that this was only a year later, and it was in the same area. And it was a big story because it was very unusual that not only was there a plane crash where 40 kids died, which is rare enough. That happens once every like 10 years, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But then for the survivors to die one by one in suspicious circumstances, this was only a year later. So they could have just said everyone there is aware of what happened. You didn't have to, go over it and explain it and re-explain it. So yeah, that's one of the flaws I think of the movie. But overall, I'm able to look past it. But you're right, that one was pretty noticeable.
I think where this movie saves itself is the bits in between. Like, they do this, but it's not overtaking the movie. So you can kind of you can cringe a bit, but then there's enough action, and because they didn't go like the first one really telegraphed when things were going to happen. This managed to do a few side steps left and right, and you think it's going a certain direction, like you mentioned, and then just take you by surprise.
Right.
Which I thought was good. Like, even Evan, like the first death, the Reaper recouping, so to speak, like everything was set up. He should have been like dead 100 times.
Yeah.
And you're waiting, like he's down the waste disposal, and you're just waiting for that thing to switch on. He's he's using a gas stove. I can't remember what was he heating up.
It was cereal or something. Oh no! It was the leftovers, right? No, he put the leftovers in the microwave.
Dumped the spaghetti out the window.
It was like breakfast cereal. It was something weird.
Strange, anyway.
Yeah,
but that's a gas stove. You don't, you don't light a gas stove and like be complacent.
Yeah,
and everything was just building up, and you're just waiting for it, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, and especially because he had died in a fire in the car crash, in the premonition. So he was engulfed in flames. So that you have it in the back of your mind. Okay, he's going to die the same way he was meant to. And for him to get out, especially when the window's closed, you're like, oh well. Death is
windows. There's a bit of glass. That's
yeah, you can't defeat death. You're stuck. Sorry, buddy. But then he gets out, and then even then you're like, okay, well, there's going to be an explosion, but he avoids the explosion. Like they really did subvert your expectations, like you said, sidestepped it in a good way.
And I was getting it, and the way I enjoyed this, there's a sense of playfulness.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that. I'm all for a bit of, playfulness and having fun with the audience.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're trying to do now, but they've no idea what that is. Where this, you can kind of go, oh, they'll get this, they'll get, and you can actually get the impression that the director and the team behind this wants you to have a good time. Like I said before, like, oh, wouldn't this be fun? And we'll drag them along this. But you can kind of see the vision here of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you don't feel like they're insulting you or putting upon you. They're, it's coming. Not yet. And I appreciate that. I appreciate when someone's trying to make something that for me to have a good time.
Right. 100%.
But
it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's coming, and you're going up for the second time for the next kill. That's like each time you go around the circuit, and it's going clack, 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 clack. That's that bit. And that's what I can imagine, and I'm like, people design roller coasters for you to have fun. It's not just the structural integrity and all that kind of stuff and safety. They want people to actually enjoy themselves, so they've thought that stuff out.
Exactly.
And I just miss that about movies. I just miss the fact that movies have fallen off a cliff, and it's so hard to find a good one now. And this is only 2003. It's not even, what's 21 years? Nothing in the scheme of life.
Right.
But the fact that spaghetti, that he threw out the window, got him. I just thought that was a bit of poetic justice.
That one was a little scary for me because that's clearly the way I'm going to go. Spaghetti is going to be my nemesis one way or another. Very... yeah. Either, one way or another, either from eating it, too much of it, or slipping on it. It's definitely going to be my nemesis.
Yep. And of course, if you can't do the expedition, what the characters do, the research, try to figure out what's going on and who's next, and I think, but I have to call bullshit on this movie because this is 2003, dial-up modems. Like, I think 28.8 was just out. Like, you know what I mean, it just recently upgraded from 14.4, if you remember that speed. You know, ISDN cables were a rich person thing. Like, they were, you know, that's back to oh, what was that game? Oh shit.
What
Wasn't
type of game?
Doom. It was the sort of Doom, Duke Nukem.
Quake,
No,
Doom,
the
Halo.
Unreal Tournament.
Oh, Unreal. Oh, yeah,
This is
Ultima,
the
right?
yeah. This is Unreal Tournament times.
Yeah.
And yeah, web pages did not load that quickly.
that was pretty quick.
You're just like, nah, it's completely unrealistic. What do you mean? The image doesn't take a half an hour and you don't have 20 porn bots attacking you?
It's a good point. That is a good point. That's true.
Your boot disk was your friend, because the minute you connected, your friend, poof. Oh, it was a Wild West. Fun times.
That is true.
God, but yeah.
You know what's interesting about that? Like it's one of the few things that kind of dates this movie is the internet, and even like the cars, like everything seems like it could have been filmed a couple years ago. Like the movie was successful in being sort of timeless, where it holds up.
And the fact that it looks better than freaking movies today, and 20 times the budget, like not even twice the budget. We're talking about movies now, 20 times the budget looks shit.
Yeah.
And like this is brilliant.
Outside of that one scene with where he's clicking on the internet pages, this literally could have been filmed 5 years ago, 7 years ago, instead of 21 years ago, and you wouldn't know the difference.
No, that's another thing. It feels fresh. Like you watch this and it feels bloody fresh. And I'm happy and sad at the same time, because I'm happy that movies like this can still bring you back in, and even going back to watch this was still fun and still got invested. But I'm also sad because of the state of filmmaking today.
Yeah.
Like, there's no excuse.
That's true. Yeah.
Ah, dear. Oh yeah, and then we'll have Kimberly. They're all trying to get people together and find it, and then they find out that Claire survived.
Yes.
That was a strange scene.
I really liked it though. I feel like I know that it's another connection to the first movie and stuff like that, but I really liked that she was the only survivor. I liked that they showed Alex dying, because if Alex was able to survive the first one, then you'd go into this movie thinking, okay, Kimberly could survive it. The one who gets the premonitions is the one with all the power, and they can defeat death. The fact that Alex died by a falling brick really heightens up the tension for Kimberly, because you're like, geez, that kid Alex was super smart in the first one and did everything right. And if he can't defeat death, then there's really no hope for Kimberly. So it really kind of ramps up the tension. I like that. And also I like the fact that Claire survived, but she even says in the movie, like, how good am I doing? Because she's put herself in this padded cell and taken away every possibility as much as she can of dying. So
you may as well not be alive, because that's not living.
Exactly.
There's a difference between existing and being alive and actually living life. Massive difference.
Exactly. You can't be afraid of everything.
God, no, it's a death. But just, I mean, the scene where she's walking into the hospital and right, give me this, give me that, give me that. They may as well have just stripped her naked, put her into one of them forensic suits.
Yeah, I guess
I was waiting for her to go into, like, the one of the decontamination chamber.
Well, I feel like they would have done that if they believed Claire. But the fact that they're like, we're just doing this to keep her calm, but I don't think they actually like gave it like a lot of like credence. Otherwise, they would have made her do something like that. But that was funny. All the list of things that she had to take off: the necklace, the belt buckle.
But how did she get the stuff up in the cell wall? Surely there was pins.
Yeah, and honestly, like, if death wanted to kill you, like, we just came from a global pandemic a few years ago. You're telling me like there couldn't have been one interaction with one of the nurses or orderly where someone gets a virus or a germ and then she dies? I mean, you can't.
Yep. But this is once again, this is a concept, and this is a movie that's playful.
Yeah.
And this is where the movie, like we're saying, goes against itself because it tries to take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
And that's where it starts working against itself because they didn't have the confidence that they prepped the audience enough with the lore, where we all got it. If you watch the first one, you've got it. And all this is basically a different set of circumstances.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tongue in cheek. You're not meant to, like, how many times have they been in the vehicle together? The one crash, they would have all been wiped out.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. You know what I mean? A plane falls on them, a flipping bird strike, 100 things.
Yeah.
But that's not the, that's not the playfulness of this. Like I said, the whole thing with Evan's death is the playfulness of the movie. And that's why you go to watch something like this.
Yeah. So obviously we know the reason why Evan's death occurred the way it did is, like you said, because of the playfulness of it. But trying, as I always do, to get myself in the mindset of this is a real movie. This is why is Death acting like that? The only thing I can think of is that they've mentioned that it's a malevolent, being. Like they've said that several times.
It's actually sentient.
Sentient, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's purposefully wants to punish them for subverting its
Was that
plans.
not mentioned in the first movie?
I feel like it was. I get them a little bit confused because we did.
That was mentioned in the first movie that Death is angry you've messed with his plans, so it wants to punish you.
Yeah, I think Bloodworth explained it
in
the first movie, and then the guy at the beginning of this movie on TV also really hammered that home. So if you're looking at it from that mindset, like maybe it does make sense that they don't just all die from like a brain aneurysm or a virus. Like maybe the Death wants to punish them and have them die in a horrific way as a way of like, I'll get you back for, messing with, my plan type.
And then there's the opening then that you can appeal. If it's a deity and it's sentient, you can appeal to it.
Yeah.
Which then leads into the storyline of, life begets death.
Right.
And that allows you. But once again, I think just the over explanation and the fact that every character then had to be connected to the previous group was a bit much. That's where it went overboard. Oh, hey, I was meant to take over the teacher's position from blah, blah, blah. Hey, I was blah, blah, and I kind of zoned out a bit because I'm like, oh my God, what, are you really doing this?
Well, I do disagree a little bit because I kind of like that connection to the first. I kind of like that connection to the first one because without that, then you're saying that two different random events took place, two different people that had premonitions, and it was two separate events took place. I kind of feel like that's too much of a reach. I think it is slightly more believable that there was a one-time event for some reason. And I have a theory in my first video with my buddy Colin, if you want to go back as to what that reason was, as to why Alex became aware initially of the plane crash. But if it's one event, you could almost, understand it. And now Death is trying to get back to close the loophole. If it's two separate random events, then they could be popping up all over. Because if two could occur within a year, then these things could be happening all the time. And then wouldn't we know about it in the news if you're having all these random events?
Yeah. See, where I'm coming from, I like the force, like the yin and yang and, opposing forces.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to think that if death is unchecked, death is all consuming. So you've got the force of life as well. And the two are constantly at odds to maintain balance in the universe.
Yeah.
Obviously, if there's all life everywhere, there's no room, there's no rebirth, there's no regrowth. And I would have liked that they open up that there's the force of life working and you can appeal to that force of life. And sometimes life intervenes and death intervenes, and that's why there's chaos.
Yeah.
Because, the death, and that, it's almost unfair, but also random as well. That there's no there's no logical explanation. And I think what they're almost doing is they're talking themselves out of that. And I think this is I think this might have been studio interference. See the script when they're trying to over-explain and make all the tenuous things to everybody. It looks to me like this is a bit of studio interference.
Yeah.
We got to really explain to this audience, and it started a trend. This is where this trend has begun.
Yeah.
Of over-explaining to the audience, because it's just, it's carried on, and we'll see the pattern.
Yeah.
I don't know, just
you would have liked it if it was a completely separate event and
but
over connecting to the.
They've already connected enough with plenty there. That bit in the car where they all, they're all explained. That was too much, and I just felt we didn't need it. That was a bit of exposition that wasn't needed, or connection. There's plenty. There's the people they're in the game. We know they're in the game. Let it play out.
Well, look, I mean, you can't always be right. You had a good run there for a while. No, I'm just kidding. No, I see your point.
Hold on a minute. This is the internet. One must always be right. No,
I'm just kidding. No,
there can't be laughter during this. What are you playing at? We're meant to be enemies now forever that we've disagreed. That's not the way things are done.
No, I see your point. Yeah, I think I would have rather maybe they keep that scene but lose a couple of other scenes. It was too much, I think, connecting the two movies together. But I see your point, and it definitely was a long scene. And even I, who was into it and I liked the connections, even I was like, oh, I lost track of who.
Yeah, you kind of zone out a bit, by the a third explanation.
Yeah. So I definitely see where you're coming from with that. It wasn't successful.
But that's the beauty of art as well. I mean, that's a whole point.
Absolutely.
Two people can I think I made this a point in one of my news articles. 10 people can like a movie, but 10 people can like the movie for 10 different reasons.
Yeah.
And there's no one, this is the way, because that would be boring. What a boring world we would live in if that was the case.
Yeah.
And I just, and that's the whole point of the discussion as well. That's to get different perspectives.
It makes it fun.
Oh, I never thought of it that way. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And it just gives you a better appreciation.
I love it about this channel too, is you have someone like me who's from New York in the States. Then you have Del, who's from New Zealand, different part of the world, different perspective. You have Steve, who's from your neck of the woods. You have all these different mindsets and territorial influences and all these difference of opinions. That's what's great about this, that you put together this group where
actually,
you have variety.
It was organic. It wasn't putting it together. It just, it organically happened, and I'm so glad it has.
Yeah.
It's funny because Steve's an Englishman living in Wales, and I'm an Ulster man living in England. It's just, it's a funny world we all live in. God. And then what's the wee guy's name that goes to the dentist? That scene was borderline creepy.
Tim, I think, right?
Tim, yes, sorry.
Tim. Yeah.
Tim's not the full shilling.
Yeah, I got that impression, right? It was almost like they wrote the part for a 12-year-old, and then that actor came in and they were like, wow, you're doing a great job, and the director's mom or something, so we're going to give you the part. But it really did seem like the dialogue was designed for like a younger kid, because he felt like a mama's boy, like he was very
something wasn't right about it. It was off.
Yeah.
And it's not even the 30-year-old teens in a slasher movie. You're used to that. Like, all these kids are, kids, like, they're all fully fledged adults, even though they're supposed to be going to college for the first time.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, his whole character is just, there's something not right about him. And then again, that scene with the dentist, I was waiting for him to slip a hand or something. Like, that dentist is creepy.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like, I need you to turn over now, and I'm just going to put the knockout gas on you. I was waiting for that sort of dialogue.
The fact that the dentist didn't kill anyone in this movie is the most shocking part of the movie. He did it, but it's amazing. No mask. He had no mask on.
Yeah.
He knows that these birds are hitting the thing, and yet he's still fine with that sharp needle.
They're the pen. It costs you like $3, right? If you have bird strikes in window, and you just draw it down. You can't see it. It's not visible to the human eye, but birds see it a mile off.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, there's stuff like that where you can put up. Like I have stuff for my birds, like little hanging things. The little what do you call them for the cars? The blinds.
Oh, like the
sunshades.
Oh, the sunshades. Yeah.
I've got them up so they don't crash into the window, and I've got one that they can climb on. And that didn't cost an absolute fortune.
Yeah.
And dentists aren't poor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I get what they were doing, but this is just a wee bit of. I think you're just getting the impression there's something off about the whole dentist scene, and I think you're meant to feel off about it. I think it's designed that way. Like that dentist is a creepy bastard.
Yeah. As an audience member, you're just totally like uncomfortable, which I think is what was the intention. So it was very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the kid survives that, then you're like your tension is ramped up because you're thinking he's going to suffocate from the thing that falls in his mouth, or there's too much nitrogen going into him, or the water is leaking on the electrical outlet. Like there's all these things that's going to kill him. And then, he survived.
Did you see the goldfish stuck in the... I don't know whether it was intentional or not.
Yeah.
A poor wee goldfish stuck, it was dead and it was stuck.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did they not clean that tank out, or was that a we meant to see that?
I thought it was intentional, but now you're making me think that maybe it wasn't. Yeah. They can't put that part at the end. No animal was harmed in the making of this film.
No, I used to keep fishing on flipping. All you have to do is have the flipping the water just a wee bit too warm that day, or you haven't left it long enough for the chlorine to go. Fish are a nightmare to keep in a tank.
Especially
they're
to try to keep
so fragile.
Yeah.
And cold water fish are actually worse than tropical. And there's goldfish in that.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
sure.
But yeah, I've had that happen so many times. Flipping fish just going, and you're like, oh, just recognize it straight away. But if that was intentional, it's very clever because you feel uncomfortable. You don't feel comfortable in this dentist surgery. You feel like your skin is crawling.
Yeah. And then the fact that he walks out of the building alive, you're like, oh, and then, yeah.
And the fact that the way he went to chase the birds.
Yeah, that was a little strange.
And that's what I mean about his character not being like full, like a few sandwiches short of the picnic. No, there's something like he is not the full compos mentis.
Yeah, generally when someone you recognize yells at you to stop and stay away from pigeons, the normal human reaction isn't go, pigeons? Yay, pigeons! And then chase them. So,
I love that we're trying to catch the pigeon. And that's pigeons trained and tame.
Yeah.
Because they're making a thing of trying to catch the pigeon. And it's just like, you picking me up or not? It's like going, coo, 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 coo. It's like when I reviewed The Crow 2, the thing where the catches the crow and he's about to kill, and you're like, that is such a tame bird because there's no way you're doing that with a real crow. You'd have no face left.
Oh yeah.
Like even my cocktails. Like I remember once I was trying to weren't going back in. I had to go to work, and stupidly let them out. And they weren't. When a bird doesn't want to do something, the bird will not do it. Like I mean, you think cats are aloof? Nothing compared to birds.
Yeah.
I remember, trying to put my hand. She got me right in the neck, and we had this like standoff where she had like full, and she only a small part, not a, it wasn't like an African grey or anything, but she had me right in the jugular, and I'm cold and going, I'm not squeezing, but you need to let go of me, and she's like, you need to let go of me, and there was this full 10-minute standoff of who's letting go of who first. Because I wasn't wiggling. Once they get a grip, they're not messing about.
So you ended up taking the bird to work with you that day, stuck the whole
That
day.
was me walking about all day. People wouldn't be surprised if I did that. Actually,
Yeah.
God. But yeah, it was just funny watching the pigeon going. Yeah, the pigeon just like, "Are you picking me up? Any chance?"
Yeah.
And then obviously they decide they're going to go to the morgue.
I love the Bloodworth scenes, I tell you.
That felt like on the set of the Monster to the Addams Family or Elvira or an old Hammer movie. Like they went into a different film. Like that was not the same. Like they went into an alternate universe.
Yeah, and it was different looking even from the first movie.
I was like 80s sort of horror.
Yeah. And you know what I thought was interesting too is they spend all this time trying to like safety proof the apartment, but yet they walk into this morgue and there's a giant incinerator there and like no one flinches. It's like, well, that might be a source of death.
Only when the plot requires it. But
Yeah.
then actually you're hitting the nail on the head about death being a sentient entity, because have you noticed that whenever we feel like we're told when death, you know, and it starts, we feel the death is circle back round to them.
Yes.
And then the tension hypes up that they start getting, oh, death's back. But we seem to also have these respite moments because you can't keep up there all the time.
Right.
So you almost get this feeling that death's passed on by. You know, he's had his attempt, but okay, right, I'll get you next time. And then it's had to move on to do what it's going to do in the universe.
Yeah. And there's often, I've noticed, a breeze that takes place right before.
Yeah.
So
that's what I said, the whole, you know, and
yeah. So I think that's relevant because wind is invisible, but you could feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're saying, you know, death is the same way. It's invisible, but you could feel its presence. So I think that's the kind of the analogy they're doing with the wind. So I think it's interesting.
Really woven that in, which is why I find certain parts of this, like, you don't need to. You've built up so much tension in the scene, and we'll get it, and you've got us invested.
Yeah.
Don't go too far. This is where it can go off the rails.
Right.
But it's almost like when they're going to Bloodworth, that they're directly appealing to death.
Yeah. He's like the manifestation of death, right?
Mm-hmm. And of course, who doesn't want to see Tony Todd in a movie? Just if you want an excellent horror movie, just have Tony Todd appear and do a 5-minute monologue, and then that's all you need. Sold.
Yeah.
It's like back in the day, if I had Robert Englund appear, just doing something. That's all you needed for your movie. It's like, oh right, Robert Englund's in it. Okay, sold. Click.
What I loved about his performance in this is that he comes off as being just as benevolent as death itself and uncaring, the way he just throws the body into the incinerator without a care in the world. And yet when Kimberly grabs his arm and pleads to him to help, or at least explain, there's like a moment where he looks at her and then he does give her information about the new life. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like there is some goodness.
Appealing to the, you can appeal to the deity.
Yeah.
This is a sentient force.
Yeah. It's not 100% malevolent, which I kind of like that, because if it was, then would anyone be alive? Like, no, like there has to be some, for this world to work, this fantasy world to work, there does have to be some modicum of humanity or goodness or balance. It can't all be malevolent. And I loved his performance, because that, when she appealed to him in that way and was completely vulnerable, that's when he explained about the possibility of new life, which I thought was very cool.
Which turned out to be actually quite clever, because it was, once again, the one thing this movie does really well is you're kind of led down one path and then you're just dragged off right at the last moment.
Yeah.
Which the next one, obviously, the elevator kill isn't that they're all in the apartment and they're like the whole thing with the shark and everything, and just and Mama Hooks, Mama Hooks is going to kill you. You kind of knew where that was going. Wasn't expecting the Mama Hooks to be a pervert. That bit wasn't bad, but
I didn't know they had a Harvey Weinstein in the apartment. That was so weird. What was he sniffing her hair?
I don't know. Something
so weird.
I don't get that. Randomly get up to people in the street, but then again, there's all sorts in the world.
It is New York, so I guess that fits. There's some weirdos that live here, but that guy was that was an interesting decision by the director to put that part in.
But once again, it's the playfulness I get. Like, there is a sense of fun to this movie.
Yes,
I get more of a sense of fun to these than the Sharknado series. I think they've tried to distill in the Sharknado series. They're trying to distill down in the lab. This is fun. Here's a test tube. We'll insert the algorithm of fun, but not actually having any.
Right.
Where this feels like genuine fun.
Yeah, and I think also a big difference is the thought that goes into crafting these movies. Even though there's one-dimensional characters, there's still a lot of thought. Like we mentioned the breeze, like we mentioned, like my 180 theory is correct. But there's all these little elements of ramping up the tension and taking it down, and connecting the story, whether they overdid it to the first one or not. There's a lot of thought that goes into this. Whereas the Sharknado ones are just, let's throw as many cameos in as we can. Let's do as many things that are just silly but don't make sense. Mm-hmm. It is not as much thought, and I think it's a different experience. And for me, this one is a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, and even though we are nitpicking, let's be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
We're nitpicking at this.
Yeah, for sure.
But even at that, I would stick this on 100 times compared to a Sharknado movie.
Yes,
agreed. Like, honestly, if there was the option between watching this for the 10th time and Sharknado 2 for the third or fourth, this will win.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely having fun watching this.
Yeah, me too.
And I think part of because I've seen where that, I think what my complaint is, I've seen where this has went. This is the foreshadowing of movie making, where this trend started. And maybe that's why I'm hyper aware for it. Because I'm like, oh God, this is where we end up. We end up here where we are today.
Right.
And that makes me sad when I'm seeing the germination of these sort of movies. And not over explaining the dialogue, but there's still that creative energy here and a willingness. Like, I want the audience to come in and enjoy themselves. There's still that desire there, and you feel it, and you're on board for the ride.
Exactly.
Yeah, and up in the car leads up to the truck. They're trying to go to the hospital, aren't they? They're trying to track down the pregnant lady, because I think if she gets pregnant, that's going to go. And then I was not expecting any of this. I think this is the other scene you're talking about, aren't you?
The part I was thinking about was Clear, which I guess is the scene.
I was thinking this scene in the car.
The scene in the car where she's pregnant,
this one where she's trapped and the pipe.
The back. Oh my gosh!
And the fire brigade's trying to get her out of the car.
That's a great point. I forgot about that.
The wee fella, who was going to get knocked over.
Yeah. So there was 3 deaths that really surprised me. You're absolutely right. This is one of them. And I thought because she was trapped, like somehow, like especially because you showed like the oil trickling underneath. So you're like,
once again, you're being set up.
Yeah, you think the car's going to be on fire. She's not going to be able to get out, and that's how she's going to die. And then instead, she's joking with the Jaws of Life guy. She's like, "Can you make that thing quieter?" And he's like, "Yeah, let me put it on vibrate." And then a second later, you went from laughing to like, "Oh," And it was just an amazing. The timing of it was so
visceral,
jarring
and quick,
visceral,
and I'm like, "Holy shit!" And I've seen, believe it, I have seen this movie before more than once, and I'm still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm still there with a movie like this and still get and we've already been set up 3 times for these types of death.
Yes.
And we're still there and we're still shocked. And I'm like, buddy, bravo.
Right. The craft. There's a craft to that. You have to get the timing right. You have to set up the audience correctly. It's
The
a lot of thought.
dialogue.
The dialogue. You have to have introduced the element that's going to kill the character earlier on. Because if you just introduce it, people are going to be looking at it. So you had to have done it earlier enough that you've now forgotten about it for a second, but yet not too long where you like, why? What killed her? You had to remember that, oh, right, 2 minutes ago, there was that sharp thing sticking out. Just the timing of it was so well done that when it happens, you're like, oh my gosh, that's right. But I had forgotten about it momentarily. Very well done.
Yeah, this is how you craft a scene.
Yeah.
Like, if there's anyone going to film school and want to make horror movies, this is how you do it. Look at that scene alone. Look at all the setup, everything that's, that 3.5 minutes worth of movie. And it's perfect.
Yes.
And I don't say that. I don't say that a lot about things, but looking at it in that context, that's a perfect scene.
Well said. Yeah, I 100% agree.
And I don't gush over that. I'm not hyperbolic and I don't do that, but
yeah,
I'm good when I've no problem turning things down, but where credit's due, that scene just, you couldn't have done it better.
100%.
I don't think I've seen anything even close to the shock value of that, and all the elements are there that you needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, obviously they're rushing to the hospital. They're trying to think that the save the baby, and because of Kimberly's vision, she thinks the doctor's going to kill the baby or kill her. It's all this. So we're straight away back in the next. We've all been led up a path, and you don't know where it's going.
Yeah, I really like the back end of this movie because there was a while there where it was sort of predictable, which it had to. It was going one by one. It was killing the people in different ways, which was fun. But then the mystery element of the last third of the movie was very, very enjoyable because I didn't remember this part, so I was, didn't know how it was going to end. For me though, the part that I was really shocked was Clear. I kind of thought she was going to be the protagonist that was here throughout all of the movies. So when she died, and it was at a moment where it just seemed like the baby was saved, everything was going to be okay. I knew that it wasn't because there's too many characters left alive, but I did not expect Clear to die, and especially not to die right then. And for that explosion to take place.
I'm almost had a replication of the scene in the dentist chair. Like, if you think about it, your guys, oxygen got switched off and everything, and all that kind of stuff. Like, it was almost the setup, for the dentist. But this is where it followed through, and you're like, okay, right, okay. So you're maybe expecting something else, all to be fine, and then boom, gotcha.
Yeah. It was just very, very well done. I think that's where the movie is at its finest. Those moments that you just did not see coming.
The last scene, though, I was a bit like, first of all, poor Brian, like, he didn't deserve that. He's a nice kid.
Yeah, and that was weird too because that's one of the flaws in the logic of this movie. So the idea is that it all started with the plane crash, and because those people weren't supposed to survive, it's ruined Death's plan, and now there's a ripple where all the survivors have affected other people. But then again, that kid Brian, if the people in the plane all had died as they were intended to, then that kid Brian wouldn't have been there at that moment to be hit by a car. So he wasn't supposed to die in the original plan. So why does he have to die here? So that's kind of where the logic breaks down a little bit.
This is where I think, once again, studio interference. The
Yeah.
committee's got around and go, we had a death scene at the first one. We need one now. This is how this has to finish. This is the formula.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been just thrown in for that.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Because it really doesn't fit and makes no sense. And even at the end of it, it was more of a comedy death.
Yeah.
Which we just had a really serious moment. And we had a breakthrough moment of understanding this entity and how it can be appealed to and setting up for that to be explored, the lore.
Yeah.
And then that sort of scene, don't forget it, there's not just Death's plan, but there's Life's plan too. That's why I've got in my head about the two entities. There's Death's plan, but there's also Life's plan. And you're telling me that if you see somebody about to walk in front of a bus, you don't reach forward and stop them because you're interfering with Death's plan?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? This is where this franchise could get a bit silly.
Yeah. And
because because it's got bigger,
mm-hmm.
and it becomes the thing. More people are going to start sticking their beaks in. You just know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think the other bad thing about that is it overshadowed what I thought was a very cool story idea that could have been executed better. The idea that Kimberly felt that I know how to stop everything that's happening. I have to die.
Mm-hmm.
And so for her to sacrifice herself, but then be brought back from death, I thought that was a very interesting concept. Like, at what point is death satisfied? Okay, you did sacrifice, you did die, but yet you were resuscitated. So does that count? I thought there was a lot of thought that could have provoked.
God, what is it? The butterfly effect? God, I haven't seen that in donkey's years either. That plays with that idea too.
Ashton Kutcher one?
I think so.
Okay. I haven't seen that in a long time.
And Flatliners?
Flatliners is a great example of it.
Yeah, there's another one with a play with that.
I like that. Yeah.
So this isn't a new concept or something that hasn't been played with. But I think here's where this is where they're thinking, we've got a sequel, we want this to be a long-run franchise. You can almost see the cogs turning in the background with this movie.
Mm.
And they're trying to go, we need to set this up to carry on. But we also need to keep it fun and goofy because they're popcorn flicks.
Right.
And this is the line where they're straddling of, do we go too intellectual? Do we stick with goofy fun? And this is where, like I said, everything just went way over the other side. Now everything's over intellectualized, and because something's clever doesn't mean it has to be highbrow art. It's the balance is gone. Where this is a brilliantly crafted movie, but you can also see where the think tank of the studio is sort of sticking their beaks in, and the interference. You can see it starting to happen, but thankfully, not enough to ruin the movie.
Right. But I think that really was a cool idea in the context of this film, but it just didn't make sense. And also it wasn't executed right because it really didn't look like the police officer was making any progress. He was banging at that window. There was not one crack, and it was clear that the door was locked. And it looks like she, went out, like she was unconscious at that point. So how did he get her free and to the surface? Like, it doesn't, and it's subtle. All you had to do is you had to show that there was a crack. Every time he banged on it with his gun, the window was starting to crack. Show something that at least as a viewer, I could be like, okay, you know what? He kept at it. He was able to get through and pull her out. And that was a cool.
Or before the rounds got, totally wet, fired one off.
Yeah. Something.
It's where the movie trips. Like I said, it's borderline where the movie starts to trip itself up. And I'm almost starting to think now, is this a runtime thing too? They needed to pad out scenes to make the runtime.
Maybe.
I mean, you got that you can't. I can't not look at these now and think about not think about the background stuff of why decisions like this are made.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not always 100% creative. Or the script. There's always the studio. Okay, we need to run this long. We need this. Right, we want to make a third one.
Yeah.
That's the plan. So we need you to do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's the infancy of this sort of culture that we have today. It's right there. It's so obvious now that we look back.
Yeah, but I will say, going into the third one, I wouldn't mind that protagonist Kimberly and the police officer. I wouldn't mind them being in the third one. I do like when they connect one movie to another. I'm a big fan of the continuity. I hate when parts are recast or just ignored entirely. And I think the bar has been set so low with Sharknado for the protagonist that if there's a protagonist that just doesn't annoy me, that's like a huge win lately. and Kimberly did not annoy me. So I'd be
the thing. Even the lesser, like even Evan, like you should really hit his guts, but you don't hit him. You know what I mean? You don't. You just You might barf a bit into your mouth when you see his apartment. But
yeah.
You actually see he's a bit of a tragic character because all of a sudden these people are coming back. Hey, I heard you won some money. I'm going to be nice. And you think, oh, poor fella, he's going to be tortured.
Yeah, but he's going to have one heck of a weekend.
Yeah, but I think he's somebody who just wants to be liked. So there's not really...
Yeah.
Tim, I didn't hate him. I just thought there was something wrong. You know what I mean? You get the impression there's something wrong. And then you saying the fact that it looks like the part was written for a younger character makes 100% sense.
That's my theory. Yeah, that's my guess.
Bran, God's sake, he did nothing wrong at all.
Yeah.
Poor kid, you know what I mean? So, you've got likable characters here. And even the ones that were unlikable, they were dealt with in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. I do think some of them were a little one-dimensional, but I feel like it would be a different experience if your heart was breaking every time there was a death, if you were like really emotionally like, oh God, that's terrible. I do think it's just not necessarily better or worse. It would just be a different experience. So like you said, like in the beginning, like there's a reason why, these types of movies have characters that are not necessarily fully fleshed out because it's meant to be fun and you're meant to move on to the next one, like a slasher.
But all in all, it's a fun movie. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely, me too.
Rewatchable, like proper rewatchable. And the fact that it still is relevant and it still holds up after 21 years is bloody brilliant.
Yeah.
There's movies today don't even hold up by the time you leave the cinema. You walk out the foyer and you're heading out the front door. You've forgotten what you've watched.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, but it's true. Yeah.
And there's more of them out than not. And obviously now we're just going to get requel, prequel, reboot, rehash, regurgitate.
Yeah.
Like, they're plumbing the depths here to spit out movies. And it's not looking good for the next 2 years.
That's true. I hope whoever the director and writer was for this one is the one that does the next one, because definitely they did a great job. I enjoyed it.
You got that French guy, I think, or either French name. But yeah, obviously, I think the next one's the Fun Fair. It's the next one it's the Fun Fair or the Ghost Train or something.
I'm not sure. I never saw Beyond It, so it's gonna be completely new to me, and I'm nervous to even look stuff up because you click on the wrong thing and it spoils the ending. Even in the title of an article these days, it's like, were you shocked when this character died in the first 5 seconds? Why is that the title?
That's why I don't. Yeah. People keep asking me, do I watch something before, weeks ahead? Like, no, that's the whole point of watching something, even if you've seen it before, as close to the review as possible, because then you still have that reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I try to do, is watch it within a day of the review, because then at least then it's fresh and the reaction's fresh, and especially if you left something for a while. 100%. You don't want to overanalyze, because then if you overanalyze, you just ruin the whole experience.
Well, that's kind of my whole MO. It's overanalyzing. Leave that to me, buddy.
That's all fun. You can crack on. That's the overanalyst department.
Yeah. I got your back, pal.
Yeah. Always appreciate it. But this is a lot of fun. And as always, Chris, mate, thanks for coming on. It's always great to do these. And
thanks for having me, buddy.
We're back to, we'll make our own fun. We're watching a shit movie next, and then we'll make our own fun out of it.
That's true.
But that just leaves me to say, until next time, keep updated with the channel, do the techie flicky things, and remember to keep it creepy. Keep it horrific.